Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really getting into something fundamental for anyone in the permanent makeup world. It's the science that's, packed inside that little pigment bottle. It's way more than just color, isn't it? It feels like it's chemistry, biology.
Oh, absolutely. Physics too, really. And understanding that, moving beyond just the artistry part, that's where you really level up your skills.
Right. For getting those results that are predictable, look great, and actually last.
Exactly.
So for this deep dive, we're looking at an article from Supreme Permanent. It's called The Science Behind Pigment Composition, What You Need to Know.
Yeah, it's a good one. And our mission today is basically to unpack that. We want to figure out what these pigments are really made of, how they act once they're actually, in the skin.
And why knowing all this science is just crucial. Non-negotiable, really, if you want those amazing, vibrant results that clients are looking for.
Think of it like understanding the building blocks of your work. It explains why some pigments just work differently, or why colors might shift over time.
And helps you choose the absolute best stuff for each person. Okay, let's get into it.
Right. So the article kicks off with the most basic split, organic versus inorganic pigments.
Okay. That's like the first big category.
Pretty much. It's the starting point for, almost everything else we'll talk about.
So organic, does that mean carbon-based? Like actual carbon in the molecule?
That's exactly it. Carbon-based. And then inorganic pigments, they're usually mineral-based. The classic example in PMU is iron oxides.
Gotcha. Iron oxides. And these two types, they behave totally differently in the skin.
Completely differently, yeah.
Okay, let's tackle organic first then. The article says carbon-based, known for bright, really vivid colors. I'm picturing like lip blushing or maybe a super bold eyeliner.
That's the typical use case, yeah. They give you those really saturated shades. And artists often find they implant quite easily.
Easier to work with during the procedure.
Sometimes, yeah. They can feel quite forgiving, and you often get great color right off the bat, good retention initially.
But I feel like there's a but coming. How do they fade? Is it different?
It is. And, the article makes a really important point here. Most organic pigments you find in PMU aren't purely organic. They're actually hybrid.
Ah, okay. A mix.
Yeah, a mix of organic and inorganic components. Pure organics are, less common now. These hybrids, they do fade over time, but they can stick around in the skin for quite a while, maybe 2-3 years, sometimes longer.
So they fade, but they don't just vanish on their own.
Right. They can leave a kind of residual stain, which means if you want the skin totally clear later on, you might need removal, like saline or laser.
That's a really key difference. The article mentions Bro-Vi plus roasted chestnut, right, as an example of a hybrid.
Yes, exactly. Good for those rich, warm looks, especially, they say, on lighter skin tones, where you want that vibrancy.
Okay, so that's the hybrid organic side. Now, inorganic, mineral-based, lots of iron oxides. These I tend to think of for more like natural brows, maybe a softer eyeliner look, more muted.
You got it. Generally softer, more earthy tones. The big plus with inorganics is often their longevity and the way they leave the skin.
How so?
Well, unlike the organics that can kind of linger, inorganic pigments seem to be, let's say, recognized and broken down by the body more readily over time.
The body just sort of cleans them out.
More or less.
Yeah.
Your immune system, the lymphatic system, they gradually process these mineral particles. The article suggests they usually fade out pretty naturally within 1.5 to 2 years.
Which could be good for things like brow trends that change, right?
Yep.
Or if someone wants less of a super long-term thing.
Exactly. And the source highlights the Etalon Mix inorganic eyebrow set as a good example here. Stable, fade-resistant in a predictable way, great for those natural brow styles.
So deciding between them isn't just about the color now, it's about predicting the future look and fade.
Absolutely crucial. But, the color particle itself, that's only one part of the equation. The article stresses how important the vehicle is, the carrier liquid.
Ah, right. The liquid, the pigment powder is mixed into. I feel like that gets overlooked sometimes.
Totally. But it massively affects how the pigment flows from your needle, how evenly it goes into the skin, even how the area heals up afterwards.
Yeah.
It really dictates the pigment's whole consistency and behavior.
What kind of liquids are we talking about? What are common carriers?
Well, the article mentions things like distilled water, witch hazel, alcohol. But it really zooms in on two key ones, glycerin and alcohol.
Glycerin. That sounds like it would make it thicker. Give it more body.
It does. Glycerin is a thickener, and that thickness can give you more control over the flow. It makes it easier to get really smooth, even saturation. Good for artists who like that slower, more deliberate placement.
Okay, but what's the downside?
Well, the article points out that because it's thicker, it can sometimes mean slower absorption into the skin, especially, it seems, with clients who have oilier skin.
Ah, the oil kind of resists that thicker liquid.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
So glycerin gives control, but maybe slower uptake sometimes.
And alcohol, the opposite, thinner.
Exactly. Alcohol thins the pigment right down. This means it can get into the skin really quickly. Some artists like that for speed or specific techniques.
But there must be a catch there, too.
Yeah, you need to be a bit more careful. Alcohol can potentially dry the skin out faster during the procedure. So it needs, careful handling, especially if the client's skin is sensitive.
So it really sounds like finding the right balance in that carrier mix is the goal.
Definitely. The article has a pro tip about how blending carriers can help you hit that sweet spot for both flow and healing. And it also reminds us, it's not just the pigment and carrier.
What else?
The delivery system. The needle cartridge you use is just as critical for getting that pigment where it needs to go effectively.
Oh, yeah. Everything has to work together.
Totally. How that pigment actually gets deposited depends on the liquid, yes, but also the tool. The article mentions Quadrant Optima PMU cartridges, for instance.
What's special about them?
They note they offer really good pigment flow, which helps cut down on problems like pigment blowout, where it spreads too much under the skin, and it helps ensure it goes in smoothly.
It just shows how every single element matters in the process.
For sure. And then, thinking beyond the procedure itself, these pigments aren't just sitting there passively in the skin forever.
Right. They interact with the body, don't they?
Yeah, the article touches on these biochemical things that happen over time, influencing how the color looks long term.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The body isn't just a blank canvas. So those iron oxides we talked about, the inorganic ones, what happens with them over time?
Generally, they're quite stable, but sometimes, depending on the person's skin chemistry or maybe their undertones, they can undergo subtle changes. The article says they might shift a bit cooler, maybe look a little grayish.
Oh, interesting. More likely in certain skin tones.
It seems more common, or at least more noticeable, on darker skin tones, where the skin's own melanin can kind of influence how we perceive the pigment color.
So that lovely warm brown you put in might end up looking a bit, I don't know, ashy down the line.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
But the article gives a really practical fix based on color theory.
Which is?
Use a color corrector. Mix it right in with the main pigment.
Like adding a drop of something warm to counteract that potential cooling.
Precisely. The example they give is mixing something like the Etalon Mix Orange corrector with those pigments that might lean cool. The orange helps neutralize any potential gray or blue tones that might emerge later. Keeps it looking warmer, more stable.
It's like insurance against the gray.
Kinda, yeah. A little shield. It's a great example of applying that chemistry knowledge.
Smart. Okay, what about the organic or hybrid pigments? How do they interact or fade? We said they fade more.
Right. They are generally more susceptible to fading quite noticeably. The article explains it's mainly down to two things: UV exposure sunlight and the body's own immune response.
So the sun actually damages the pigment molecules.
It can, yeah. The energy in UV light can literally break down the chemical bonds in the pigment over time. And at the same time, your immune system kind of sees these pigment particles as foreign objects, even though they're safe.
So the body tries to get rid of them.
Basically, you have these cells called macrophages, and they essentially try to eat up and carry away these pigment particles.
Like tiny little vacuum cleaners for pigment.
A bit like that, yeah. So that process, plus the sun damage, leads to that gradual fading and color change, especially, in places that see a lot of sun, like eyebrows.
Suddenly those aftercare instructions about sunscreen make a lot more sense.
Oh, absolutely critical. And, this ties right into the next big point the article makes.
Which is?
Tailoring your pigment choices specifically to the client's skin type.
Ah, because different skin types will handle these pigments differently. Makes sense.
Exactly. The skin isn't just a passive surface. Its own characteristics really impact how the pigment performs. The article specifically calls out oily skin.
Yeah, I've definitely heard oily skin can be more challenging for PMU retention.
It often can be. Oily skin produces more sebum, right? And the article suggests this extra oil might speed up fading, either by maybe physically pushing the pigment out faster, or maybe just interfering with how it settles in stably.
So if your client has oily skin, you need a pigment that's kind of tougher. More resilient.
That's the recommendation. The article suggests looking at pigments with a thicker consistency, maybe more glycerin, or just formulated differently, or leaning towards those with a strong inorganic base. They tend to offer better longevity in oilier skin.
Okay. And is the reverse true for dry skin?
Generally, yeah. Dry skin doesn't have that extra sebum potentially working against the pigment. So the article notes that organic or hybrid pigments, which might absorb easily and feel less, dense, can actually work really well on dry skin. Less risk of them looking overly saturated or healing patchy.
So you really have to analyze the skin before you even pick up the bottle.
Absolutely. Understanding the canvas is just as vital as understanding the paint.
Looking ahead now, it feels like this field, the science of PMU pigments, is always moving forward. What does the source say about, the future?
Well, it highlights that the industry is constantly striving for pigments that are safer, more stable, and just easier for artists to work with reliably.
Any specific innovations mentioned?
Yeah, things like developing pigments that are truly hypoallergenic for clients with really sensitive skin. That's a big one. And also formulations engineered specifically to resist those color shifts we were talking about, the cooling or ashing.
So artists can expect even more predictable pigments in the future. That sounds good.
That's definitely the direction. Increasing predictability, safety, longevity. It's all driven by the science. And interestingly, the article also mentions a growing trend towards eco-friendly and ethically sourced pigments.
Oh, like how?
Things like ensuring pigments are cruelty-free, vegan, maybe produced more sustainably. The article suggests artists should probably keep an eye on this as clients are becoming much more aware and concerned about these kinds of things.
That adds another layer to choosing your materials.
Wow.
This whole deep dive really underlines it. There's just so much science packed into every single drop of pigment.
There really is. And shifting your mindset, from just seeing color to understanding the composition, the carrier liquid, how it interacts with the actual living skin.
Yeah.
It's transformative for an artist.
Yeah. The big takeaway from looking at this Supreme Permanent article seems crystal clear. Knowing the science behind pigment composition is just fundamental. It's the foundation you need to consistently get those long-lasting, vibrant, and crucially predictable results.
It really backs up the need for making deliberate choices. Not just picking a pigment for how it looks today, but considering the client's skin, their undertones, appreciating the carrier's role, the pigment's chemistry, all of it.
And like the article stresses, if you want to stay ahead and deliver that top-tier consistent work, you've got to be really picky about your materials. Choose reliable pigments from sources you trust.
Absolutely. The kind of quality and scientific consideration that the article talks about, that's what you should be looking for. Suppliers who get this science and provide pigments artists can count on, like those examples we discussed from Brovy Plus and Etalon Mix, or even the tools like Quadrant Optima cartridges. It really is investing in your own results by choosing quality materials, like those you can find, for instance, at Supreme Permanent, where this article originated. It's about choosing quality for your work.
Definitely. So thinking about that future, the article touched on safer, more stable, ethically sourced pigments. Here's a final thought for you to chew on. As the science keeps getting better, how will artists use these new pigment formulations, not just for, say, better technical outcomes, but also to meet those rising expectations around health, safety, and even ethics from their clients?
That's a really interesting intersection, isn't it? Science, art, and ethics all coming together. Definitely something to watch.